Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Brad Peroney from Carnegie Science Center, and I'm joined today by Scott Hollander from KidsVoice. How are you today, Scott?
I'm great, Brad. Thank you for doing this today. Really excited to be here for Kites for Kids.
Wonderful. Yeah, so it is Kites for Kids Day here, and we are hoping that we have lots of kids and families, or maybe just kite fans of all stripes, or science fans tuning in. We're going to uh, make some projects that you can do at home. And so I'm very excited to share some of those with you. And we're going to learn a lot about the great work that KidsVoice is doing here in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to hand things over to Scott to give us a little bit of information about KidsVoice and welcome everybody to our program. And then we'll get into some of the hands-on activities in a few minutes. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Brad. Very excited for today's event. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank Brad and everyone at the Science Center for making this event possible. Today's event, Kites for Kids, is really about the work that we do at KidsVoice, and more importantly, about our clients. We work with over 3,000 abused and neglected children each year in Allegheny County who are involved in Allegheny County's juvenile court system because their parents aren't able to provide them with a minimally adequate level of care. And they end up involved with our county child welfare agency, the Office of Children, Youth, and Families in Allegheny County. And of the 3,000 children we work with each year, 2,000 of them end up in foster homes or group homes. And we then advocate for their specific needs. And each child is assigned two people from the KidsVoice staff, a lawyer and a social service professional, who work together to figure out what unique things each child needs, each family needs, to hopefully have the parents address their issues, often substance abuse, so that their children can come back home and be with them. And our kids can be with the people they love. And Kites for Kids is really an opportunity to do two things. One, for our clients, many of them in foster homes, as I mentioned, and many with their parents as well, to have the opportunity to usually come out and go to the Science Center and enjoy a fun day there of crafts and games and activities that are all kite themed, and for the public to come out as well to show their support of our clients and participate in Kites for Kids as well. So that's what we're about today. And it's also to create awareness of the fact that there are 3,000 children each year who are involved in this system. And they often stay in the foster care system until they turn 18 or 21 if they're not able to go back home. And the KidsVoice actually stays with them until they turn 25. We will help them with housing issues, credit issues. Sometimes a relative or even a foster parent might put a utility or a credit card in the child's name, and they don't know that and have to address their credit issues. And we will work with them. Some of them have disabilities and they need a place to live, or they need help transitioning into the adult intellectual disability system. And we will stay with them to address any of their legal needs or benefits that they might be eligible for until they turn 25. So that's a little bit about KidsVoice, but let's get back to the fun things of today and turn things over to Brad to give us some opportunities to learn some new tricks and learn about some activities, including some kite activities.
Great. Thank you, Scott. There's so much good work being done by KidsVoice. We're very happy to be able to partner with you to do Kites for Kids. And like Scott said, normally we'd be able to welcome a lot of these kids to the Science Center for some activities. So if you were hoping to do that today, well, I hope that you're joining us on this live stream. If you are not able to join us live, then you'll be able to see this archived on our Facebook page for Carnegie Science Center, and you'll also find it on our YouTube channel as well once we're done today. So the first activity that I would like to do with you all is a paper helicopter activity. Now this is super easy to do at home. You can find a link for this activity in the event here, and you can download the very simple one sheet. It's got directions for you, and it's got a template to cut out. Now, let's say maybe in the year 2020, if you've been staying at home and you ran out of ink in your printer, you know, don't worry, you can still do the activity. You can just draw it out on a sheet of paper. So even if you can't print it, you can still download that template and you can just trace it onto some paper and it'll work out just fine. You can make it small, you can make it big. It's up to you. But we're going to cut down the template so that we have just the paper helicopter here. And I'm going to move my camera down nice and low. And one thing I want to point out is that there are two different kinds of lines here. We've got solid lines and we've got dotted lines. Now what you want to do for this activity is you want to just cut along all those solid lines and you want to leave those dotted lines just as they are for now because we're going to do some folding with that. So we've got a dotted line here and two dotted lines down here. Now this is the base of our paper helicopter. So we're just going to fold that up to make a nice skinny base like that. And this dotted line, these are going to be the propeller blades of our helicopter. Now the important thing to do here is you want to fold one in one direction and fold the other in the opposite direction so that whenever you hold up the finished product, we'll see those helicopter blades are pointing in opposite directions. Now you're almost done with the build. The last step is just to attach a paper clip down at the bottom. So this is a very simple thing to build, but there's some really cool stuff happening with these paper helicopters. The way that you do it is you want to hold it up nice and high and drop it, and we're going to do that now and see what happens. Looking all the way up here. Can you see it spinning on its way down? We'll drop one more. Hopefully you're able to see that this paper helicopter, this whirligig, was able to spin on its way down. Now, unlike a real-life helicopter that spins its blades to fly through the air, this one just spins on its way down. And there's a lot of really cool science that's happening with this. So first of all, we've got these helicopter blades. And whenever this helicopter is falling through the air is pushing up on those blades. See how they move like that? And whenever the air rushes around these blades, it actually gives each blade a little sideways push. So one blade gets pushed to the left and one blade gets pushed to the right, and that's what gives us the spinning motion that we see. Now, a fun experiment that you can do with this is you can take your paper helicopter and you can take the same amount of paper crumpled up into a ball and drop them from the same height at the same time, and you'll see if they fall at the same speed. You can see if the crumpled paper falls faster than the helicopter, or you can see if the helicopter falls faster than the paper. If you have a guess, if you have a hypothesis as to what you think might happen, I want you to go ahead and type that in the comments on Facebook now. I would love to know what we think would happen if we took one of our paper helicopters and the same amount of crumpled up paper and dropped them together. We're going to do that experiment here in just a moment, give you all a chance to type in your predictions. The other bit of science I want to talk about is all about this paper clip on the bottom. Now that paper clip does a couple of things. Number one, it holds this folded section together, right? So that we have, this part is nice and neat. But that paper clip also adds some weight on the bottom of our helicopter. Our helicopter is very light, but it's heavier on the bottom than it is on the top. And that helps to stabilize it. Whenever we have this helicopter falling through the air, that weight helps to make sure it doesn't flop over. It's kind of like, balancing a broom on your hand, or if you are trying to balance on a skateboard, you want to, get down a little bit lower. Having that lower center of gravity is something that gives some stability to this. Now, I promise that we're going to do our experiment. I'm going to take this other paper helicopter and I'm going to take off the paper clip and I'm going to crumple that up and I'm going to put the paper clip back on so it's all the same weight. Now, I know we have some predictions coming in. I saw that Saxon thinks the crumpled paper is going to fall faster. And we're going to do this experiment. I'm going to put my screen up. I've got both of them up at arm's height. And we're going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Could you see what happened? Let's do it one more time for everyone at home. We've got the crumpled paper and we've got the paper helicopter. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Saxon, you were right. This crumpled paper fell faster than this helicopter. Whenever that wind was blowing here and it made the helicopter spin, that gave it a little extra lift so that it could resist the force of gravity pulling it down. This one didn't have any lift on it because it didn't have any spinning blades. And this one also, because it has these big flat blades, it had more air resistance, kind of like a parachute. So there's a couple things that cause this to slow down. One of my favorite experiments to do with this, and we're not going to do it here, I'll leave this for you all to try at home, is to take your helicopter like this and throw it like a paper airplane or like a football. And I would love for you all to try to do that. If you want to take a picture or a video of what happens when you throw it like a dart or a paper airplane, you can share that with us at the Science Center. We would love to see the results of your experiments. So the paper helicopter, I hope you all try this. Feel free to share some pictures of it. We're going to pass things back over to Scott now, and we're going to learn a little bit more about KidsVoice. So Scott, why don't you come on back on the stream? And for those of you who might just be joining us, I'm Brad Peroney from Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh, and I'm joined today by Scott Hollander from KidsVoice. And if you missed the first part of this program today, you can check it out on YouTube or archived on Facebook after we're all done. Scott, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit more?
Thanks, Brad, and I appreciate you doing the helicopter activity and having a flight-themed item that our viewers can learn about today. And some of those viewers are our clients. I mentioned before we have 3,000 children who we work with who are abused and neglected, involved in Allegheny County Juvenile Court. Many of them are here today and have the chance to enjoy this event with their foster parents and see everyone here coming out in support of them. So thank you for that. I also want to thank our sponsors today. There's a whole list of them on our kitesforkids.org website, where you can see who all the sponsors are that help to make the event possible and support our work at the same time. And I just want to mention a couple of our lead sponsors. Our elite sponsors are UPMC Health Plan, Children's Hospital, and Community Care Behavioral Health, and also Highmark. In addition, we have our Sky High sponsor, Buchanan Ingersoll. So I want to thank those sponsors in particular here and ask that you see all the other sponsors that have been so generous in supporting our work and our clients and today's event. I also want to give a big thank you to our clients who are here and hopefully having a distraction from what has been a very difficult time during COVID, where many of us are struggling, even with our families, to make things work in our lives. And they're without their parents. As I said, about 2/3 of them, 2,000 of the 3,000 are trying to make that work. And even those with their parents, this is a time when families are struggling, and at-risk families are particularly vulnerable. People do not have a break often to go to school, except for some districts that do a hybrid or a few that are doing in person. And there are financial pressures on families, like on many of us. And I think it's great that we can have this event and thank them for staying the course and really working so hard. The parents have worked hard who have got their kids back in their homes by addressing the issues that led to their removal. And I also want to give a special thanks also to our foster parents. They did not sign up for 24/7 care when the pandemic hit. That's exactly what they were faced with. Many of them have jobs and had to juggle that, finding supplies and food, and some of our foster parents are grandparents. Over 50% of the children in Allegheny County who are placed in foster care are with relatives. And some of those grandparents are older and are more susceptible to COVID. And thank them for sticking things out. They have all of those challenges. Some of them have economic pressures. And on top of that, they have to deal with the challenges of being sometimes teachers as well. When the children were home last spring, they had to figure out technology. They had to support those children. And some of our foster families have other children in their homes as well. So managing all of that was was quite challenging. And it's the kind of thing where many people wouldn't stay the course and would give up and then say, hey, take these kids and put them somewhere else. And we did not have a lot of people jumping up and down to be foster parents and opening up their homes during this pandemic or even now. So I really am grateful to our foster families for stepping up and doing that, and for our um, parents of our children who have worked so hard to get their children back and address sometimes their addiction issues or other problems. Keep up the good work, and let's keep those children in that place in your homes. And um, I also want to explain a little bit about what we've done during the pandemic to support those families. Um, so in addition to supporting our clients, we've helped the families address things, like if they need to get a stimulus check or have been laid off and need to apply for unemployment, have disabilities, need help getting Wi-Fi, or um, get addressing educational needs or special education needs in the school. And we're going into the schools and making sure our clients who did not get their special education needs met last year can have those met this year and not slip further behind. And we're checking in now at the end of the first quarter to see how the first quarter went after we did that at the beginning of the school year as well. Just trying to support our clients and families as best we can during this pandemic time. So that's a little bit more about our work and what we're doing. And I just want to thank everyone again for being here. And I'll turn things back over to Brad for our next activity.
And Scott, before you slip away here off camera, um, our next activity is we're building a kite. So I would love to know if you have any great kite memories that you want to share with us before we move on to actually build one.
Well, I remember flying kites and launching little, rockets with my dad and my brother and sister when they were little. And actually, at our first Kites for Kids event, where we actually had an auction, things like that, it was actually at the Science Center, and our family bid on a kite package, and we got this great stunt kite that I didn't know how to fly and just sat around. And we took a drive up to Erie where there's a beach called Kite Beach on Presque Isle in the state park. And people are flying kites. And we brought our other kites. And I had that stunt kite in the car. And I went and got it out and asked these professional stunt flyers about, hey, can you show me how to work this kite? And they were so generous with their time. They taught me and my kids how to fly this stunt kite. It was great fun. We became very confident and came back the next day, super high winds, and no one was out on the beach. And we didn't figure out why until we got the kite up in the air and was sailing across a couple of times, and the strings broke, and that was the end of our experience. So those are a couple of kite experiences. How about you, Brad?
So I had, like a lot of folks, I think, as a kid, some of those kites that you might get at the drugstore with superheroes on them, or maybe when I was a kid, they would have had Care Bears or something like that. And I remember being very excited, putting the kite together, stringing it up, and taking it outside and immediately getting it stuck in a tree. And you think after one time of doing that, I would have figured out a way to avoid it. But no, we got so many kites stuck in the trees. Sometimes we had to wait until the leaves fell off
Right.
before the kites would actually fall down and be reclaimed by us, all torn and tattered. Uh, but I do keep a pirate themed kite at work at the Science Center, and so sometimes on windy days with the wind whipping up the Ohio River, I'll take that out and give it a little fly.
Well, I have a question for you, maybe a technical question. I know
Yeah.
we're going to make a sled kite here today, but if you have tips about kite flying, but you talked about losing yours in the tree, there's this great moment when you feel like you're controlling it and you're catching the wind and capturing everything that's going on, and but then you lose control, and sometimes that kite stalls out, and that's when it loses control. Is there a science about that? Is about lift or where it hangs in the air or something you can do at that time to sort of
Yeah.
guide your kite in a better way?
So I'm not an expert at flying kites, judged by my history of getting them stuck in trees, but I understand why sometimes the kites will take that very hard, fast dive that sends them crashing towards the ground. So we mentioned with the paper helicopters, lift. So that's the force that pushes up on a kite to help keep it in the air. And that's the same force that pushes on airplane wings to keep them up. That's the same force that helicopter blades are generating when they're spinning through the air. They're generating this upward lift force. But we just call it lift because we use it to go up. But the lift force can also point down, and that's determined by what we call the angle of attack. So that's what angle the wing or the kite takes going through the air. So if the kite is angled up and here's the string coming down, then the lift force is up. But if it stalls out because it hits a patch of dead air and there's no wind, and it starts to take that little bit of a dive, as soon as that nose of the kite points down, the lift force is pointing down, and that's why they'll come crashing so fast. So I think part of it just comes from experience and knowing, how to adjust it to keep that nose pointing up. But that's also why kites have big long tails on them too. Those tails generate some air resistance, some drag, and so it makes the bottom of the kite slower than the front of the kite. And so that helps to keep it pointing upwards to have that proper angle of attack. So if you were to snip a tail off a kite, it would be much harder to fly it.
Oh, that's good. I always thought they were just decorative because some are so short and some are crazy long and they flutter around. So it's good to know that it really is designed to maintain that upward lift and not cross over what you described, where the nose comes, or the top comes forward and then
Yeah.
gets forced down. Thank you.
It's strange to think of lift as something that could be forcing your kite down, but that's what it is. So let's build a kite, shall we?
Great.
Let's try it out. So we're going to build a sled kite today, and you can find a link for this activity on Facebook here. We're sharing that link with all of you. This is an activity that we got from NASA. So NASA knows a thing or two about flying. They've been, to the moon and back, and they're going back to the moon in just a couple of years with Project Artemis. But they have a sled kite activity. Now, there are lots of different kites. If you've flown some kites, you might have seen many different shapes of kites over the years. But this sled kite is going to be kind of square or rectangular in shape. Now, you're going to need a few things for this. You're going to need this kite template. And this is on page 5 of the NASA activity, or if you go by the page numbers they have there, it's page 48. But there's only 6 or 7 pages in there. So you can just print out this page. And you're also going to need some scissors, like we did before. You're going to need a couple of paper clips. You're going to need a couple of straws. Now, maybe you don't have straws at home. That's okay. You can try something else like barbecue skewers, or maybe you can just take some scratch paper and roll it up really tight into a tube to make your own homemade straws. If you don't have any of these materials, you can try to improvise with other things. You're going to need some tape. You're going to need some string. Now, you can use special kite string. This is sort of like just some cotton thread. So you can use regular sewing thread for this if you want to. If you don't have kite string, if you don't have thin thread like this, Maybe you can even use some dental floss. So be creative with whatever you have at home. And you're going to need a way to punch a hole. So I have this fantastic hole punch, but if you don't have a hole punch, you can just use scissors. Just be very careful with it. You want to maybe have an adult help with punching those holes if you're using scissors. And to make the tail, I used a plastic bag. And if you're like me, you probably have a bag full of bags, especially since a lot of stores are not using your reusable bags right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by cutting out this template to just the kite body itself. And we have a couple of lines here where we're going to tape down our straws. And we also have a line here for tape. Now this black spot here, this black circle, is where our string is going to be attached to the kite. So we're going to start by putting some tape here to reinforce this and make it stronger. And we're going to punch our hole right there. And so you can see that's where the string is going to be attached to our kite. We're also going to tape our straw down. Now, I like to use 3 pieces of tape for this, but it doesn't matter, so long as it's nice and sturdy. You want to make sure the straw is taped down nice and sturdy so that your sled kite has some stiffness to it. Okay? You want to think of this sort of like a parachute. That's the shape it's going to take when you fly it. So you want this to have some stiffness on the sides so that it can make a good parachute shape. I'll hold it this way. So whenever the strings are on there, you'll see it's going to make this rounded shape. And you're going to want to snip the extra straw bits off. Boop, just like that. And you'll tie some kite string in here, and you'll tie any old knot just to make sure it doesn't come loose, and you'll tie it off to the hull. And you do the same thing on the other side. And after you do that, it's going to look something like this. So I've got my string tied on here. I hope that's in focus for you. And I've got it tied on the other side, just like that. And both lengths of string meet in the middle, and I've got it tied off to a paper clip. And this paper clip, this is where we're going to tie the rest of our string so that we have something to hold on to. Bring this back up. And remember I mentioned that kites have a tail to keep them pointed nose up, and that's what we use the plastic bag for. So I made a nice long tail just by cutting strips of that plastic bag, and I went ahead and decorated my kite too. I hope Scott likes the decoration I chose for today. So once you get the strings tied to your kite, you want to make sure you have about a foot or a foot and a half of string here. You can then tie the rest of your string to this paper clip. And to fly this kite, you can hold it up and start to run. And when you let go, hopefully this sled kite should be able to glide right behind you, cutting through the air like an airplane wing. It will have that lift force because the tail helps to make sure the bottom stays down and the top stays up. You'll notice that the strings are also tied on towards the front. That also helps. That design also helps to keep the nose of your kite pointed up. And you can get about maybe 3 feet of string. That's a good distance, and you can run and have this behind you if there's no wind. If there is some wind, you can see how well this will fly. One thing to note is that bigger kites catch more air and they get more lift. So this one might not fly as high as a kite that's 3 feet long, but maybe with the right amount of wind and the right determination, you can get this one to fly. Now, if you are having fun with these activities and you are interested in doing some more science, there's lots of ways that you can get involved in science learning that are, you know, attainable for lots of different levels. One thing that you can do is you can get involved with some clubs. Now, your school might have some science clubs or a robotics team or something like that. And even if you don't have any experience with those types of things, it's worth trying it out. If you're interested in it at all, don't hesitate, try it out. You might also join some extracurricular groups like scout groups or 4-H or First Robot League. They even have a league to build robots out of Legos. So there are lots of groups out there that you can join in your community to get involved with learning some science. And of course, you can also visit us here at Carnegie Science Center. We love sharing science with all of our visitors, and there are lots of ways to do that. You can either just come by for a visit. We also have online programs like we're doing today, and we have summer camps and we have classes for homeschool students. So lots of different ways to get involved with science at home. So I want to bring Scott back on. And if any of you have any questions about the kites, you can go ahead and type those into the comments here. Uh, but Scott, I hope that this kite was meeting your
Sure.
design sensibilities. I see that matches the logo
Yeah.
on your shirt.
Well, thanks for that, Brad. A really nice touch in matching the Kites for Kids logo, and you have a great way of about you, and you're very engaging. It's hard to do that on Zoom video when we're all and Facebook Live when we're all so tired of those things and wishing that we could be together in person. I can't wait till hopefully next year we can again resume our wonderful partnership in person at the Science Center and do all of these things for hours at a time and have our clients come and see that steady stream of people pouring out in support of them. Because that's really what Kites for Kids is about. It's about the opportunity for um, our clients to, well, the kites really are a symbol of hope, a chance to, as Brad mentioned, to create that lift in their lives, to lift them up um, and help them to soar in a way that they don't often feel that they can get every day. And to have that happy childhood activity. Some of them never flown a kite. Some of them never been to the Science Center. And so we love having this event in person, although we're very grateful that we can do it this way today. And basically to come out and just see all of our community, just like people who are participating today among our clients can know that there are so many people out there coming today on Facebook Live to support them, believe in them, believe in their future. And that's a really powerful message to send anytime, but particularly during these difficult times. So thank you, Brad. Thanks to the Science Center. Thanks again to all of our sponsors on our kitesforkids.org page that you can see, and especially our top sponsors, our elite sponsors, UPMC Health Plan, Children's Hospital, Community Care Behavioral Health, and Highmark, and our Sky High sponsor, Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Mooney. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for being here today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend.
All right. Thank you, Scott. And thank you for all the great work that KidsVoice is doing. And we can't wait to see all of you flying your kites around Pittsburgh or wherever you may be. And on behalf of KidsVoice and Carnegie Science Center, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.